Somehow it got my face, got all over. I felt blinded. I was saying,
all right, well, there's our cold open right there
Yeah.
of context. Just that,
Yeah.
the last 2 sentences.
Yeah.
That's how we start this one.
Perfect. You know that it made my shirt smell.
So Mario,
Yes,
you are
Nick.
still in your honeymoon period with video games.
Yes.
Is that safe to say?
Yeah, it is safe to say.
First 6 months, 4 months?
I would say it was in December, right around the holidays
Cool.
this past year.
So almost a half year
Yeah, almost a half
of playing
year.
video games. And
Yeah.
we sent you home recently with The Last of Us.
Right.
One of the most critically acclaimed games of last year.
Yes.
And maybe not your traditional video game shooting experience.
Right.
How
Yeah.
are you finding it so far?
Well, the truth is that what actually attracted me to video games in the first place was the fact that I kept seeing trailers for video games and they looked very cinematic, and it was very different than
Yeah.
video games, what I understood video games to be. And so, the fact that The Last of Us is so cinematic is actually made it so this might be the most satisfying video game experience that I've had.
I mean, if what you're looking for is games that tell stories neatly and are like actually well written and stuff,
Yeah.
you can't do much better
Right.
than Uncharted and The Last of Us.
I started off a long time ago in filmmaking, and I fancied myself a storyteller and a writer and a filmmaker, and that's all. And it was a medium that I really felt like I understood. I was really attracted to, and just storytelling in general. And I never really thought that a video game could at all do the same thing that a movie could or that a book could. And even recently, like television series can do. But what I really was so blown away by, and have been blown away by, with The Last of Us is how well it tells a story, and how it really you're so in the story that when a character has died in any movie that I've seen, I have never felt it to my core as much as this.
Yeah.
And what I'm finding is that I will die in some part of some abandoned building.
Yeah. What difficulty are you on, by the way? Do you know?
Medium or like regular, whatever.
That's really impressive, by the way, because like that game is considered pretty widely to be kind of a tough game. Like a lot of experienced gamers would get to a point in that game where they would just kind of hit a barrier for a while. And
Right.
it was like the first time you fight a clicker is kind of considered one of the biggest brick walls that game throws up at you.
Yeah. So as far as the difficulty, there are times that it takes me quite a while. I die quite a few times. The crazy thing is that every time I die, I feel it the exact same way that I do the first time that I die, and where it's just like it feels like pins working their way from my insides through my skin out of my body, and it is brutal. And every single time I die, in the exact same part, it's exactly the same. It's still scary and still the same. And there was one part to go to the difficulty aspect of it. There was a part that I could not get through that I figured out how to get through it was by playing it with the volume off.
Yeah.
Because I could not it freaked me out. The sounds made me panic so much.
Hearing you describe the pins and needles feeling, what immediately jumped to mind is I think The Last of Us has the best, or at least the scariest sound design of any game ever. Yeah. Like the sounds that the clickers make, obviously, but every time you get executed, every time you like die in an animation and it just does that scream and then that cut to black, it's like so cinematic and so horrifying, just the audio by itself.
Yeah, it is. It is insane. And the music starts up, and you sort of, as you go through it, you start to get the rhythm of like, okay, shit's gonna go down.
The combat encounters,
Yeah, and every time the music and the sound design takes you exactly to some part that is so terrifying, so that danger is coming. and there's nothing. There's just, but you know that you have to keep moving forward, and which is, I guess, how the idea, that you have to keep moving forward in the game
for sure,
and through the story. But it's just fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, well, one of the things you mentioned that I think is interesting is that it's so cinematic and aims to tell a story, something you didn't think games could do.
Right.
And it's been funny as someone who's been heavily involved in games my entire life, building up to The Last of Us, and that games have tried to tell stories kind of alongside a shooter before,
right.
But I think The Last of Us was kind of a watershed moment for a lot of people in that it felt like you were in it.
Right.
And you were a participant in it in a way that it hasn't really been accomplished before. I
right.
think a lot of the small moments, like the conversations between Joel and Ellie, all that stuff, it just like feels so human and so real.
Right. Well, that's the thing that I think is so interesting, is that it's actually good acting.
Yeah.
Which is such a weird thing to say in this, but it's actually good acting. It's actually, the lines are real. Mm-hmm. The writing is good, where it's like, it doesn't feel cliche.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel forced.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't feel corny. It actually it's real emotion.
It feels like two people talking, and I think even right down to the details, like I remember a lot of moments of just Joel just muttering something or just being like, or just little grunts and stuff, like the way a person talks, not just saying yes, hello, like it's a lot less cartoonish than I think a lot of games are.
Yeah,
so,
it really is like so I've been having a really nice experience getting into video games and really enjoying it, but I feel like this is the first one where I thought, the idea of writing a video game, where I thought, oh yeah, I could see doing that.
Yeah.
I could see wanting to do that. Where it never occurred to me how one would go about it or anything. But like this was like it feels like I have felt like it's opened my eyes to what a video game can be.
Yeah.
And it's really exciting, frankly.
That's awesome.
And you just, now I want more. I want to get through this. Obviously, I'm quite a ways into it, and I can't wait to finish it. But then it's like I want more of that, more of that experience.
And a little bit tragically, I still think there are exceptions, but I think it's safe to say like 95% of video games aren't telling stories as well or as thoughtfully as The Last of Us. There are other games out there that we could point you to that do have really strong narratives and do have writing that feels as good as what you'd see in like a well-written movie, but it's kind of the exception that proves the rule. I guess my last question about The Last of Us would be, are you finding it to be fun? Because for a lot of people, that's what they go into video games expecting, and The Last of Us isn't always fun in the traditional sense.
Right, it's not fun.
Yeah.
It is, although, it's not fun in the same way that, watching a really sad movie or watching a scary movie, it's not fun in that way. It's fun in like, hey, I'm bouncing along, or I'm like laughing at jokes, or that kind of fun. But it's incredibly fun in the sense of of seeing emotions and seeing your emotions manipulated in the way that cinema can manipulate emotions, and where you're actually living in it in that moment. It's really fun.
The opening scene with Joel and his daughter is still like that game does such a good job of establishing like, oh no, nothing's off limits. Like we are going for the jugular with this game, and we're not going to beat around the bush. And like you know that they're not screwing around as soon as that opening wraps up.
It is. It's really amazing, and I like I said, I can't wait to. I hope that they're in. That the success of The Last of Us will make it so people, game designers and developers and writers see that as, oh hey, we need more of that.
Yeah,
and
I hope so.
Where they're getting more writers doing it more, and I don't know. It's just interesting to see that evolution of games.
Well, I'm going to keep, once you finish it, you're going to play it. You're going to play the DLC.
Yes.
And then we're going to give you another Naughty Dog game probably.
Okay.
They did the Uncharted series, and Uncharted 2 still my favorite PS3 game. same people, same cinematic quality as The Last of Us, but a very different tone. It's more Indiana Jones vibes, more like swashbuckling, fun, good times, like. But it still has the same element of like I feel like I'm playing a movie a little bit. So yeah, I'm really glad you like The Last of Us. Though.
I couldn't be happier.
Even if it's keeping you up at night.
Yeah.